Happy New Year! I'm Yuichi Ochi, also known as Ochify. I'm an old-timer in the game industry, a veteran with about 20 years of experience, mostly on the business side. I'm here to share my thoughts and observations based on industry news and stories I've seen and heard. In this coming era, simply knowing information isn't enough. It is important to view the world through your own unique perspective. This program aims to provide better insights for everyone involved in business. That said, talking only about serious topics can be exhausting. My friends call me the king of East Asian B-grade gourmet. In short, I'm a foodie. So I'll be talking about my gourmet experiences as well. Today is a New Year's special, so I'm going to change the flavor a bit and talk about myself. I'm planning to do a very long self-introduction.
Ochify, Happy New Year 2026!
First off, I, Yuichi Ochi, was born in Tokyo and raised in Saitama Prefecture. At university, I studied management, specifically learning about startups and affiliated companies in the automotive industry. I remember looking at people who were lucky enough to be starting up companies at the time and thinking, that's impossible for me, while also thinking, that's so cool. Well, the first place I joined after graduating from university was the media industry. I joined a radio station company called Nippon Broadcasting System. They are famous for shows like All Night Nippon. I've always been a person who likes to gather and disseminate information, just like this podcast, so I thought working at Nippon Broadcasting looked interesting, and I was lucky enough to slip in. As for what kind of work I did, I handled various tasks, including program planning and public relations. I was initially assigned to the programming department. It's a place where you do all sorts of things, deciding the timetable, deciding which personalities to cast, figuring out how to advertise, thinking up campaign plans. I have a strong impression that it was interesting because what I did was different every single day. However, it was a very old medium, and just as the internet was starting to heat up, I found the internet looked more interesting. So after working there for about 7 years, I was introduced to a place that happened to be in the game industry by an agent. I joined NC Japan, the Japanese subsidiary of South Korea's NC Soft, as a marketing representative. PC online games were cutting edge at the time. I recall there were only about 20 employees, and it was extremely chaotic. I started in marketing there, then did PM-like work for titles, getting involved with titles like Lineage and Lineage 2. Afterward, at the invitation of an acquaintance, I moved to an IT company called Gaiax. This company doesn't have a game division now, but at the time, they had a PC online game division, and I served as the division manager there. Later, the division was sold to another company. I was the one who proposed it, and while I moved there with it, that company eventually folded, and I was invited to a subsidiary of Capcom. It's a company that doesn't exist anymore, though. The first thing I did there, well, a lot happened, but since things weren't going very well, I did something like a turnaround restructuring. Afterward, the company was absorbed and merged into Capcom headquarters, and I was absorbed and merged as well. Since the department I was in handled PC online games, when it came time to grow the business, the sentiment was, let's do our best in Asia, and that responsibility was passed to me. At the time, there was a PC game called Monster Hunter Frontier Online. Did it come out on PS3 and PS Vita too? To grow that business, well, there were other titles too. But as the person in charge of expanding the business into Asia, I went around South Korea, Taiwan, and various places to decide where to build an Asian base, and I chose Taiwan. At this time, I think it was 2012, Capcom's subsidiary was established in Taiwan. I served as the first CEO there for about 3 years. We hired people in Taiwan, localized and distributed games, plus handled licensing out, doing business with China, Thailand, and so on. And I left Capcom in 2016.
Ochify, the Game Business Podcast.
I stepped away from the game industry for a moment and went back to Taiwan with an IT company called Pixta, where I was in charge of the Taiwan business. In 2020, when COVID hit, we closed the Taiwan branch and I came back. Since there was nothing left for me to do within that company, I wondered what to do. I was job hunting, and a conversation came up with Sunsoft, Sun Corporation. Well, most of the other offers coming in were about games, given my career. I felt grateful for that. So Sunsoft is a publisher that has been doing retro games since the Famicom, NES era, but hadn't had much noticeable movement in the last 10 years or so, and I went in and did something like a brand revival. It was quite an interesting job, and when I mentioned the Capcom Taiwan story earlier, I noted that most of my work had been in Asia, but at Sunsoft there were quite a few inquiries from the West, Europe, and America, so my relationships expanded to the West, and my acquaintances and business partners increased. As a result, with connections made in various places, I left Sunsoft at the end of 2024. Regarding leaving, I was moving while thinking about what to do next, but gratefully, there was talk like, if you're going independent, I want to work with you. Oh, I thought, that's something to be grateful for. Honestly, I thought going independent was something you do when you want to run a business yourself, but I thought, well, I guess I can do it even if that's not the case. I also thought if I'm going to do it, now is the chance. Humans work as long as their bodies can move, or rather, I think I'm the type of person who gets bored if I'm not working. So thinking I want to work until the day before I die, I thought I have no choice but to do it myself. And so at the end of last year, in December 2024, I established Ochify LLC, Ochify Godo Kaisha. You might think, did you really need to make a company right away? But looking back now, I think it was the right move. Since my signboard, corporate backing, was disappearing, I wanted to put up a different signboard. Or rather, if I was going to do it myself, I wanted a trade name. By the way, regarding the name Ochify, I grabbed it starting from the domain. I saw that .com was open. So I decided to go independent and start a company, but I wondered what to name it. At the time, I asked Claude, the AI, it's still around now, version 3.5, I think. I asked it, well, since Ochi is a rare surname in Japan, and even when I go overseas, Ochi is easier to say than my first name, Yuichi, I thought it would be good to use Ochi. I had Claude 3.5 think of 10 company names using Ochi, but they were kind of meh. When I said, give me something more entertainment-like, a few came up, including Ochify. I thought, oh, Ochify is nice, it's like Spotify. I checked if the .com was open and it was, so I took the domain first. Then I registered the company. Words like simplify or identify, words with FY attached, mean to simplify a state or turn something into the state of that word, right? So if you ask what Ochify means, it's to make like Ochi, which sounds interesting. It's a fun name with a secret ambition that, as a result of doing business in my own way, my surroundings will become like themselves, become Ochi-like. Yes, I remember my daughter rarely praising my naming sense on this one. Well, aside from that, I started the company.
Ochify the Game Business Podcast.
And as I mentioned earlier, there was a request for me to take on work, which I gratefully accepted. Well, another one was decided after that. So at the time of independence, I was doing two things. What kind of work is it? One is, well, a PM-ish job for a certain game publisher in Japan. Yes. For example, bringing in titles or going somewhere to sell titles they own, or actually managing the progress of projects with the company members. And the other one, I was helping out an AI startup. Then another one was added, and from around October 2025, a consultant-like role began at another game-related company. Thanks to that, the company's fiscal year closed in October, and I'm due to pay corporate tax and consumption tax. Well, since it's a one-person company, the fact that costs aren't that high might be part of it. In that way, I am continuing to work on game-related tasks. Gratefully, it is getting busier and busier, but well, since it's a company I run alone, I managed to squeeze out time to do this podcast, even though I think there are limits. As to why I started the podcast, I mentioned the story about my employment after university earlier. I have a love for gathering and disseminating information. That's part of it. And, well, how should I put it? Especially when looking at the West, industry people broadcast all sorts of things, and I thought, we don't have that in Japan. So I decided to try it. There's writing and other things, but a certain acquaintance told me, Ochi-san, you're better at talking than writing, so I'm giving it a try. Since I happen to be from a radio station, I sort of know a little bit about how to make a program. Aside from that, well, it's not at a level where it's a business yet, but for example, this year, a course to train game creators was established at a high school in Tobitown, Ehime Prefecture. I've been doing something like a teacher there. Also, let's see, being called to Hakodate, Japan by an acquaintance to try to start something. I'm doing various things within the scope of what I can do on my own, but I want to be involved in projects centered on games that make the world more interesting. And well, I've been making music as a hobby for a long time, so I don't intend to make this a job or make money from it, but I want more people to hear it. I'll paste the link in the description for this too, so I'd be happy if you could listen to the tracks I'm streaming. Also, something I realize running a company, it's interesting, but your view of the world changes. The most impressive thing, after all, is paying corporate tax and consumption tax as a company, thinking about cash flow for this and paying it out of what my company earned, right? It feels like, well, I've paid residence tax and income tax until now, but I feel like I am contributing even more to the country and local governments. So, furthermore, I've started to pay much more attention to things like how the national budget is used, what the administration is doing, or thinking DX isn't progressing at all. My consciousness really goes there now. This is interesting. I'm even more interested in macroeconomics than before and worried about what would happen if interest rates rise. This was a strange sensation. Also, gratefully taking on work and doing it as a company feels different from doing it as an individual within an organization, even though what I'm doing is the same. Yes, it's about what is important, what is truly important. You aren't evaluated unless you focus on these essential things when you work. And what is important is appropriately providing the services and products the customer desires. When you are inside a company, there are company goals, plans, and such, right? No, they are necessary. They are necessary, but have you ever felt like those things take on a life of their own and you get swung around by them? I felt that a lot. There is a feeling of being liberated from those things. It might be a problem with the partner companies I'm involved with, though.
Ochify! Happy New Year 2026!
But I became able to calmly think about what is important first and then how to operate the plans and such based on that. If I had understood this when I was an employee, I might have produced better results, but that's fine. However, the idea itself of concentrating on that important thing, the essential thing, I feel I learned at Capcom. Whether it's operating my own company since becoming independent, or when viewing the companies I'm involved with as a consultant, I do refer back to how I thought when I was at Capcom, what everyone was saying, and especially what the founder was saying. I am quite conscious of that. This is a digression, but Capcom's founder, Kenzo Tsujimoto, also owns a winery in Napa Valley, and there is a direct store for that winery, right? So drinking wine there makes me feel like I want to return the favor. It makes me feel I have to drink more wine here, I have to earn more. It's strange, but, well, I thought that, so it can't be helped. I got a little sidetracked, but it's about what is truly important. I realized how much wasted movement I was making out of convenience for the company or other people. I think, particularly in Japanese companies, people worry too much about the organization, especially the people around them. And as a result, productivity is low. Isn't that happening? Really, in the game industry, I feel the gap is widening between the guys making games really well right now and the people who aren't. Since that ultimately comes down to human judgment, people in Japanese companies need to be careful, being too bound by numbers. Numbers are something that follow later. Have you forgotten that the important thing is to provide the services and products the customer desires appropriately? If this rings a bell, please ask yourself, well, I ended up saying something a bit preachy. Sorry about that. But, well, this too comes from a desire for the development of the game industry. No, that's not it. A desire for everyone to be happy. So, going forward, my Ochify LLC wants to contribute to the game industry as long as I am asked, and also pursue the music direction I want to pursue and the education direction. I hope to invite guests to the podcast and dig deeper into various things. Look forward to it.
Ochify, the game business podcast.
Gourmet Information Corner. Today, regarding Shibuya Ward, where I rent a room for Ochify LLC, speaking of the station, it's near Shinsen on the Inokashira line. This place has an incredible number of drinking establishments. Since it's tucked away from the center of Shibuya, there are many cozy little shops. So when I rented this office, I thought, all right, I'm going to explore the shops in this area one by one. But the result was that I didn't go out drinking much. I'm not young, and maybe it's also because I'm often not here at night. Also, for lunch, I end up going to my favorite pork bone ramen shop, Men Nobo Toraide. So I haven't been able to explore at all. This time, the shop I finally managed to explore, though it was through a referral, is connected to a shop I used to go to in Shinsen that had an N-gauge railway model diorama. I happened to pass the owner on the street one day. Well, that shop is gone now, but the owner still lives in Shinsen. Since we met, we've said, let's go for a meal or something, and we went drinking the other day. The shop he taught me was quite good. It's called Ishokuya Marumi Shouten. It's a Japanese-style izakaya. And well, naturally, they have a lineup of alcohol from beer to sake to shochu to wine, and it's a shop that makes various dishes from grilled dishes to appetizers. We went there as our second stop that day, but every dish that came out was thoughtfully made. The one I liked the most was the taro satoimo tempura. It was lightly seasoned, wrapped in tempura batter, and fried. There is no way that isn't delicious. Drinking Sapporo beer's Akaboshi, Red Star, with this was great. Well, truthfully, the Sapporo Classic would have been better, but that's Hokkaido exclusive, so it can't be helped. If you can drink for a few thousand yen per person like this, you have no choice but to visit while bar hopping. Since there are many charming shops like that in Shinsen, I want to search around and try wandering in on my own 2 feet next time.
Ochify.
Well, today was just me talking about myself, so if you have any impressions, please do share them. I am on X, Twitter, at @OchiYuichi. The content is wrong. Well, since I didn't do news today, there might not be anything wrong, but well, if there is anything that bothers you or gets on your nerves, please point it out. Also, requests like, please cover this news or can you invite this guest are welcome. The next episode is scheduled for around mid-January. I'm thinking of doing the usual Steam rankings or talking about things likely to happen in the future based on observing the recent game industry. I would be happy if I could broadcast information that is even slightly useful to you all. So let's meet again by ear. Stay insightful.
Ochify!